And that would mean that, land was purchased for something far less than it should have been. And I think it really will hold up in court as a commercial venture.
Okay, so you want
I
a
want
condition requiring the applicant not to park on that Kingston land. You in agreement with that, Mr. Mullen?
Well, another way to do it would be to obligate the applicant to comply with land use restrictions on the site and not take a position on the enforceability. I mean, there's a difference.
Well, there is a difference, but the problem being that just leaves the situation indefinite, so that Mr. Kingston has to spend a fortune. I shouldn't say that, but spend a lot of money on lawyers to litigate that issue. On the other hand, if the applicant believed that their expert's opinion was the better opinion, then they'd have to spend a lot of money on litigating that issue, whether it's in the land court or not. Maybe everyone will end up litigating it anyway, but I would prefer to deal with it here and now, and if people disagree with our judgment, they certainly have the right to protect their legal rights. My hope would be that issue would go away, that it's not...
In the design.
In the design, that it wouldn't be necessary to do that, so why create issues that are going to cost a lot of money and not, unless they're critical to the project.
Okay.
And if the applicant thinks they are critical, then he's got his perfect right to seek a declaratory judgment as to what that easement really means. Okay? Now, Mrs. King, do you want to deal with any additional issues? Because I stopped you while you were reading your notes.
Where was I? We haven't talked about the buffer zones, not buffer zones, but screening zones around the property. And I would like to add that we do have something that's buffering, because this is a piece of a zone that's going to look very different from the rest of the zone, and I believe that vegetative buffering needs to be there.
Within any particular number of feet from the lot lines?
Well, depending upon the density of that buffering, I'm thinking in the at least 25-foot range.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Mullen, do you want to be heard on that?
I thought that was a site plan issue, but I'm happy to discuss that. I thought we had captured the setbacks, but we didn't really. I mean, it was just something that I thought would be addressed in site plan review, but
it may very
Jenny
well
makes
be.
a good point.
It may very well be.
Well, part of my thought on this is that we are, by putting in conditions, we're giving the applicant an idea of what would fly through if another design comes before the board or comes to the town. And so I think that the direction that we can give that's going to help our neighborhoods, it's going to help the residents of this development, what's going to help the residents of that neighborhood, I think that's going to be helpful for the applicant to know how to go forward. And, he knows what we don't like, but maybe we should give a little bit more idea of what we do like.
Yeah. Well, there is currently setback requirements, right? It's in Residence C, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. Residence C and Residence A, I guess it's in both.
Well, this would be more of a vegetative thing as opposed to just...
I'm sorry.
just,
I'm sorry. You're not
the
talking about
building.
setbacks. You're talking about I see.
Yeah.
Well, right, and one thing that impressed me when we were on the site view, when we got up
Yeah,
to the
there's no
top of the
border.
mountain
There's
there,
no border.
when you looked at Mr. Collins'
That's a fair
property,
point.
you remember Mr. Collins' property there?
Yeah, yeah.
My recollection was that there was parking proposed, and I think that parking was like 20, 25 feet off of Mr. Collins' lot line.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we noted the close. Now maybe that
Fair enough.
can be redesigned if you're using a lesser number of units, so you're not going to directly impinge on Mr. Collins' backyard. But if you assume, and we can discuss that how specifically to deal with that. But if we don't deal with it specifically, then you certainly have to provide some type of vegetative buffer. Otherwise, he has no backyard.
Yeah.
He'll have cars almost in his backyard, and the lights will be as if there was some type of a stadium next to his property. And he has a big, beautiful house there. And I think his property may be in a Residence A zone. You may know that better than
I
me.
think it is in here,
I think it is, yeah.
Okay.
And it's also,
What is your wisdom?
it's also in a place where he's, the Carlin house is significantly lower than the bulk of the land in question here, and so that could bring in the whole idea of, you know, headlights going into bedroom windows and so forth. You know, if it comes into my first floor, I don't like it. If it comes into my second floor, I'm really hating it, and I feel that that's excessive. So I think some buffering so that those sorts of things don't happen would be a necessary condition.
What's the width?
I'm sorry, the width?
We're talking about a landscape buffer area.
Yes, you mean the well, Virginia's suggested 25 feet. I'm looking at some conditions here from Attorney Schneider, and she is suggesting 50 feet. A 50-foot vegetative buffer between the development and any adjacent property lines.
I was thi-
I'm sorry?
I was thinking that 25 would be a minimum, but it might be necessary
Well,
to have more.
look at my view is that if there's any possible impingement on somebody's single-family residence in a Residence A district, I'd make it 50 feet to
I'm fine with
give
that.
that resident the benefit of the doubt.
I'm fine
What do you
with
say,
that.
Mr. Mullen? 25 feet or 50 feet?
I want to know what we're talking about. We're talking about
talking
a
about-
landscape buffer that's 20,
Yes.
that's 50 feet wide along every
50
edge
feet,
of the site?
50 feet from, yes.
Just
Well,
nearby
from
residence?
nearby residences, you couldn't buffer the entire site, but from nearby residences.
Except in the wetlands.
The residents of frogs or
No.
tadpoles or?
A fair bit of that would be in the wetlands.
Let's say on the southerly and westerly property line,
Yeah.
because you really can't do anything in the back. of
Yeah,
the
I think that's right.
So that's along Carlin and Mullins in the
Yes.
back there.
And Lombardi.
And Lombardi,
Lombardi. Kingston.
Mr. Kingston, yes.
Well, it is a Residence A. Okay.
And we had already included about stormwater,
We
ensuring
did.
that that doesn't run off.
Yep, we did.
Okay.
You in agreement with 50 feet, Mr. Mullen?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me just ask another question, and this is something that it may be dealing in issues which we don't have to. We had the chief testify that he thought that the access road should be lighted.
Yeah, I have that.
And the parking areas should be unobtrusively lighted in some safe way where crime is deterred, and yet light doesn't emanate from the parking lots onto nearby residences. Now, is that something that you believe is the subject of a condition, or is it something that should be handled more generally? If you want to
Well, in
handle
the
it more-
condition that I read, it included parking, it included lighting, pedestrian accommodation and
Did it specifically say lighting? I don't remember.
yeah,
which-
lighting
okay,
throughout the
okay.
site.
Okay, great.
But I didn't get into the type of lighting.
And then and I don't think we should,
Yeah.
because we're not lighting a
So on the
contract.
lighting, I was a little confused on the lighting with the application. I think it was part of the waiver of the bylaw was part of the original application, but then I think it may have dropped out in the secondary round because I didn't see it in the later application. So the way I interpreted that was the applicant had actually incorporated lighting in the parking areas. as part of the program. I don't know if that's true, but I think that's what happened.
It's my
There
recollection.
wasn't any real testimony on that, I don't think.
It's my recollection that Mr. Burke, in one of his
Yeah.
supplemental filings, addressed the issue of lighting. I just don't remember
Yeah,
how
yeah.
specifically he was.
So I didn't think that the parking area lighting was really an issue in this application, to the extent that the board wants to say something about non-obtrusive. I don't object. I'm not sure it's necessary.
Okay.
You know?
Mrs. King, do you have any other issues you want to
Um,
discuss?
No, I think that just about covers what I was concerned about.
Mr. Mullen?
Nope. I'm sorry, no.
Okay. I don't think I do either. I guess, I think certainly the major issues we've discussed and I think have dealt with.
We need to talk about parking spaces and units.
Right. But I wonder whether that's, obviously they have to comply with the bylaw for parking. But do you think is that a significant issue if the project consists of 35 or 40 units?
Still have to state the number.
Yeah, I guess.
Remind me now what we need to deliver for each unit.
Well, I
1.5,
thought the
is that it?
bylaw was 1, 2. You say 2?
Two.
I think it's 1.5.
That was 1.5.
But I could be
yeah.
wrong.
The,
Well, if they have to comply with the bylaw, and they do, then whatever the bylaw says is the parking
Okay.
that's required, and they have to follow. But I don't think that the placement of the parking is as significant with talented engineers if you're using
Right,
a
right.
much smaller project. You want to address parking, Mr. Mullen?
No, I didn't want to, actually.
Okay.
I mean,
I just think we should comply with the bylaw with respect to parking for the number of units that we vote.
Yes.
Okay. I don't disagree with that. Okay, do you have anything else you want to say, Mr. Mullen?
No.
Mrs. King? Okay, let's talk about density and the number of units. Where do you stand on the number of units that we should vote?
Right where I was an hour and a half ago at 35
You
only.
say 35.
Well, for the same reasons I think you said when you were talking before, and that is that's the subject of the Reamer and Bronstein submittal, and the representation's been made that that's affordable. That it's not affordable, I'm sorry.
Feasible.
I agree.
Feasible.
Economically feasible.
That way, we're not picking something out of the air.
A little
This
reluctant.
is what's been given to us is some variety of evidence, and I think that would be the way to go.
Okay, the other issue is Mr. Lombardi has suggested 40 units, but he hasn't provided any real details.
And I
on
wish
that.
he did, and I agree with you, John. I mean to interrupt you, but I agree
you're
with
not
you. I wish we had much more testimony on many of the things that I think that I thought we were going to hear about, and we didn't. But we didn't, so we have to deal with it, and that's unfortunate. But I'm concerned that you run the risk of being somewhat random if you don't adhere to that standard. So.
We picked it for a good reason. That's the best reason that we can come up with.
Okay. All those in favor of granting a comprehensive permit to allow the applicant 35 units on the subject property with the statutory requisite amount of affordable units as part of that 35 units, together with the conditions which we've all discussed and agreed upon this evening, please say aye.
Can I
Ginny, yes.
ask one question
Sure.
first?
Of course you can.
Are we looking to have this in a village style, which would be more than one building?
Well, I had that in one of the conditions I read about breaking up by creating a series of smaller buildings.
Okay,
But
so we're including that.
Yeah, and
I didn't use the term village.
Okay,
no, but you can.
but you
Good, I
defined
just
it, which
didn't.
is better than village, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, but I think that's what we certainly intend. We're not imposing design requirements.
No.
But it's the
You don't-
nature of the,
I think it's fair to say that the board's concerned that one of the buildings is the size of a football field, and that's inconsistent with and sounds in the local concerns about which we've expressed concern a couple of times. So the idea on reducing the massing of the buildings by breaking them up into a series of smaller units is, something for the site plan review, I think, but how that gets done, I don't know.
I left it very vague to say that it was however many, one or more buildings, which the applicant could show on a new set of plans that he submits on page 5. So.
okay. All right. So let's go back to our vote. And let me just, before we do vote on it, Mr. Cram, you've reached your final decision that you do not want to file a proposed set of findings. Is that still true after our deliberations?
I don't think that's what I've said, but that's fine, thank you.
Okay. So all those in favor of granting the applicant a comprehensive permit for 35 buildings?
Yep.
35 units.
35 units, excuse me, thank you. 35 units with conditions as we've discussed and agreed upon this evening. Please say aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Okay, aye. So we have a unanimous vote. And let me thank everybody for attending, and thank you for your comments and your zeal. And we'll have a decision for you within 14 days, and everyone can read the decision and protect your own interests as you see they may be. But thank you for coming and participating.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
members of
you.
the board.
Thank you. And give our best to Mr. Caggiano. Okay, we're adjourned.